now tuned in to Butter Be Rocker on Transparency Talks Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Transparency Talks Podcast. I am your girl, Butter Be Rocker. Listen, today we have a very special guest. Her name is Angela Durant. She is a brand specialist, the founder of Be Brilliant Movement, and chief escape artist. Hello, Miss Angela. How are you?
Hello. So excited to be here with you.
So excited to have you. So I wanna just dive right in and address the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. You are called the Chief Escape Artist. Can you tell everybody why they gave you that name?
Yes. I'm the Chief Escape Artist because I help people escape the stories that have them stuck. I help them escape the beliefs that are limiting them, and I help them escape the environments that want them to play small. When we work together, I help them, tap into the magic that they possess so that they show up really brilliantly, both in business and in life.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us that explanation. So can you give everybody a little bit of brief history about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. My background is actually from hospitality. I worked for some of the largest brands in the world for almost 30 years. So I worked for, the Hiltons, the Hyatts, the Marriotts, you name it. And for the majority of the time, I was a hotel general manager. Then I was also a director of sales. And then I did regional training for the hotels before I transitioned into becoming an entrepreneur full time.
Okay, so your background is hospitality. Mm-hmm. What made you pivot into brand specialist, Be Brilliant movement?
Yeah.
That's a big jump.
It's a huge jump. It was a huge jump. And it was a long time coming because hospitality, as you probably know, is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week career, right? And so I actually worked at a company, and I was working for a boss who was very challenging. Prior to that, I loved what I did. I loved the work I was doing. Every day was different. But then I started working for someone who I thought I could work for anybody, but it was a challenge working for him. And long story short, he ended up firing me. And the time that we worked together was very difficult. I remember pulling alongside of the road one day, like in tears, because I didn't want to go into the job anymore. And then, fast forward a couple of weeks, he ends up letting me go. And it was in that moment that I realized that I had put all my eggs in that basket, that I had, worked really hard, thought that was my family. I thought I'd be there for a really long time. And, in that moment, I realized that I never wanted to be in a position where anyone had control over my fate or my finances, whether I could pay my mortgage or my car note. And what ended up happening was 12 days later, an even larger hotel company pursued me and hired me. And I realized that I hadn't become an entrepreneur per se in that moment. Mm-hmm. But the entrepreneurial spirit was born. I never wanted to be in that position ever again, that I let anybody be in control of who I was. And I think up until that point, I really didn't value who I was and what I had to offer, either another hotel company or what I could offer within my own company. So I continued to work in hospitality after that, but my perspective and the way that I approached the job was different. I was more of an entrepreneur after that point. And then in one of the last hotels that I worked, I overheard some commotion coming out of one of my team members' offices. She was a director of sales. And I went to go see what was going on and learned that she had written a children's book. And I said, I didn't even know she was a director of sales. I said, I didn't even know you were an author. She said, well, I like sales, and she's competent in sales, but she really loved writing, and children's books were her thing, right? And then there was my assistant general manager who on nights and weekends loved to do event planning. And she would do events for us within the hotel and do an amazing job. Like she would take something that was just, and then somebody would give her a book or an image of something, and she would just create something phenomenal. And what I noticed was that I had this epiphany on my way home from that job. And I noticed that everybody had something really special. There were all these people around me that were working in these jobs where they were competent in it, but they were amazing in these other areas. And then I thought about Sermon on the Mount, where scripture tells us that light should never be hidden, that nobody lights a candle and hides it under a basket or a bushel, but they place it on a stand so that everybody in the house can see it. And through that, the Be Brilliant movement was born. I was always fascinated by the psychology of why people buy. And branding, the way that we build brands has a lot to do with that. And so that's how I started to transition into branding and really helping people who were competent in what who were passionate about something else, really build something beautiful that they loved. And so that's how the Be Brilliant movement was born.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
That's an awesome story. So I'm assuming that your first two clients was your event coordinator and the author, right?
Oh, that's so funny. No, they weren't my first two clients, but the event coordinator now works on my team. So she
Okay.
helps me with all my live events because she's amazing. And the children's book author, she now does her business full time, I believe now. But no, my first clients were people who were really ready to step into the next chapters of their lives. There are women who had done kind of slayed the game where they were in corporate America or in education and decided that they were ready to step into more meaningful work.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to do something. They felt like they had already, made the six figures. They did all of that. They poured their life into their career, and then they were ready to do something where they felt like they could make a really significant impact in the lives of other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you attended Wharton School of Business. Was
Yes.
that majoring in branding and social media?
No, I wasn't introduced to branding until many years later. And it's so interesting because now looking back, like I believe that nothing gets wasted, right? You might
Mhm.
say, oh, well, you spent almost 30 years in hospitality and now you're doing, branding. But what I find is that, and I find it with my clients too, that nothing gets wasted, that we get to leverage all that we learn. Now, I took marketing when I was at Wharton and I loved it. I thought it was really interesting how cultures buy and what people see and perceive and what the differences are. But going into the business that I'm in now, I'm able to leverage the leadership, the sales and marketing from hospitality, the customer service,
Mhm.
all of that into branding. My branding education has really come from some powerhouses in the branding industry, such as Marty Newmeyer, who's written several books around branding. I'm a student of his, and we're actually working on a project now. A group of our students are working on a project now for Johnson and Johnson's baby product line, which is a global brand.
Right.
But yeah, so I kind of fell into it. And I loved it. I loved all that it stands for. And I really understood that branding is more than colors and a logo. I was
Mhm.
really fascinated by the value that can be brought to a company's bottom line with branding.
Okay. So on your site, you stated that people really need, I'm sorry, the people who really need you aren't buying for one or three reasons. Can you tell us what those three reasons are?
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons that people who need us sometimes aren't buying. One of which is clarity, right? I always say that clarity is queen. That sometimes your message just really isn't clear. The other one is confidence. A lot of times, um, I find that women who really have it together, who are really smart and very sharp,
Mhm.
sometimes struggle with confidence. Last year, I was asked to do some executive coaching at Women in Tech that was sponsored by Microsoft. And there was private rooms that were set up, and one by one, as the women came into the room, and I was so excited to talk to them because they were amazing women, just brilliant women. But but in the confines of a private conversation, each one of them pretty much said the same thing, and that was that they suffered from imposter syndrome. Right? They weren't sure that they were really as good as they thought they were. Right? That they questioned their ability. And I would say, are you kidding me? Like, you're the best and the brightest there is, right? But they still had those feelings inside. And so that's why when we talk about building brands, we talk about building brands from the inside out, that your brand should be a reflection of who you are, what you stand for on the inside. And then that should dictate how you show up on the outside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you had also mentioned that people be pursuing the wrong people. What do you mean by that? Who should one pursue?
Yeah, so that's so interesting that you should ask that, because a lot of times when someone comes to me and they want branding work done, I'll say, so tell me a little bit about who do you serve? Like, who are your customers, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll say, well, what I have, like, everybody.
Right.
I can help everybody, right? And that might be true. Like, maybe you can help just about everybody, but who are you specifically designed to help? And that clarity is important, because not everybody is your customer, right? And I'm sure, like, for you, you have a special tribe that loves your work and follows what you do, and they show up every time you release an episode, right?
Right.
And those are the people that you really create your work for. And so when I work with my clients, that's what we really want to drill down to, so that they understand that they're not chasing after the wrong people or wasting their time, but they're attracting the people who they're uniquely designed to help.
Okay. And why is it important to have a clear understanding of who you are?
Oh, because that's what branding is really about, right? It's really about, I like to say that meaning is the new marketing. Mm-hmm. Right? That people don't really care about the superficial stuff anymore. Right. They care about authenticity. They care about getting to know the real person. They want to know why you're in business outside of just making money. Always ask people, these 3 powerful questions, like, who are you? What do you do? And why does that matter? Right? Mm-hmm. There's so many people who have podcasts, right? There's so many people who are coaches or consultants out there. And now more than ever, as a result of the pandemic, right?
Right.
So why do we need another, podcast host or another coach, right? Well, when you show up, you're fire, right? You're not the same as everybody else, right? And for your audience, many times they're looking and they know, like, they'll say, oh no, this podcast isn't for me, but this one over here, this is where I want to be, and I don't want to miss an episode, because I feel like she understands me and she's speaking directly to me. So that's why it's really clear, because until you know who you are, it's really hard to serve at the highest level that you can. Because if you don't know who you are, you're really not going to shine. Like, we always talk about being brilliant, right? We really want you to operate in your zone of genius. Steve Jobs says that nobody is any smarter than you, right? But I added to that nobody's any smarter than you in your zone of genius, right? That's where you're like a category of 1. And so when you know that, you're more confident, right? You walk into the room with more power. I always say that every woman should have a theme song, right? When you're about to take the stage, that you should have a theme song that plays in your mind, right? For me, it's like Bad Mama Jamma. She's a bad mama jamma, or Brick House, right? When I'm about to take the stage, right? Because it energizes me, right? And I say every woman should have that for themselves, right? So those are my thoughts around that.
What beliefs could be limiting someone, and how does one move past those beliefs?
Yeah. So I talk a lot with my clients about identity, right? If ever someone wants to make a change, right? They want to make a change. Oftentimes people focus on behavior, right? They want to make a change. They focus on the behavior, because our behavior can help make changes, but most of the time they're temporary. But if you're able to impact someone's identity, then everything changes, right? The whole game changes when someone changes of how they see themselves. Because if you're able to help people see themselves clearly, they won't settle for less than what they deserve. Like certain things just won't be okay. Um, like even down to, let's say, for hotel accommodations, right? Once you start saying, and you go to travel, like if you were my client and you're traveling, I'm going to put you up at the best place that I can, right? You're going to stay in a really upscale accommodations, right? And once you start experiencing that and you know how people see you and you start to see yourself that way, if you go to someone else and they're handling your arrangements and they put you in a mediocre place, even though you may say they did the best that they could, something inside you is going to be out of alignment because it's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how you show up in the world, and it's not going to be as comfortable to you. And so if it's not something that you envision, then it's going to feel out of alignment with who you are. So when I'm working with my clients, I want to work with them and support them and really stepping into the highest possible version of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if they don't see themselves in that way, they'll shrink, they'll hide, they won't go for the promotion, they won't ask for the money that they really deserve, they'll sell themselves short. And we don't want that, right? So we don't want them buying into any limiting beliefs, that don't really support them. And oftentimes I find that when clients come to me, they're undercharging.
Mm-hmm.
They have all this experience, like they're bringing to the table all this experience of what they can do and how they can help people, like really change their lives, change other people's lives. And they charge, they're like, oh, do you think I can charge this amount? Like, are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Like, you're worth 10 times that.
Right.
So identity is really important. It's really
So,
a game changer.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So with your clients, what type of stories do people come to you about that makes them feel like they're stuck?
I think a lot of times they can't see what's possible for themselves. Like and I will say I was her.
Mm-hmm.
I was her because when I was working at the job, I knew when it was time to leave. I had worked there for almost 15 years, but something, your gut is calling you to something greater.
Mm-hmm.
But there was security in the job, right? I was able to pay my mortgage. I was able to pay my car note. And I was saying to myself, who else is going to pay me this? I've been here for 15 years at a good salary for the time and the age I was. And I thought, yes, I had a level of success here. I was nominated for General Manager of the Year. We were Hotel of the Year. We're in the top 1% of all the portfolio. But I was still questioning, well, that's here. What if I go over there? I might not have that same level of success. So I had beliefs that were limiting me too. A lot of it was fear. And so
Mm-hmm.
when women come to me, what we do, I do this exercise with them. I call it the Antidote for Imposter Syndrome.
Okay.
And that is where I have them really look at the evidence in their lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just focusing on the feeling, because the feeling of feeling inadequate, like, oh, I might not be good enough, or comparing themselves to other people and all that. I say to them, okay, so tell me a little bit about what you have done.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, well, I have a bachelor's degree, I have a master's, I have my PhD. I'm on the board of this and on the chair, I'm a chair of that. And, and they start stacking things from every area of their life. It's not some may be education, but some may be, their professional life. Some might be their wife and a mom. Some might be like, they start pulling all these things in.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to my clients that, yes, your clients are hiring you for a job, but when you show up for your clients, you're not going to withhold anything from them. So you have many arrows in your quiver, right? You're going to, when they show up and they have a problem, you're going to say, even though they didn't hire you to do this job,
Right.
they need support in this area, right? And all this experience that you've had over these years, you're bringing that to the table. And when they can see that, when they start stacking all these things and they see that, I'm like, you're the real deal. Like, there's no reason for you to shrink. They're like, wow, I never even thought of this. Like, I never looked at it in that way because people a lot of people, especially women, don't normally, they keep it moving. They do the job, they get it done, they keep it moving. They look at other people, they encourage and inspire other people, but they don't always look at themselves in that way. So to have a moment and just look at yourself and look at all that you have done, all that you've overcome, all that you've accomplished it's nothing for you to just step over, and it has value. And so when they say that, and I'm like, and then I say to them, and you're investing high ticket, top dollar for your education. So why couldn't you command the same thing for your services?
Right.
And at that point, they're like, they stand up a little taller.
Really good advice. So you just talked a little bit about people being undercharging, and some of your clients feel like because they're stuck and they are just getting into becoming an entrepreneur and all this type of stuff, they're not really asking for what they should be asking for. Why do you feel that like they do that?
I think because they just don't know what's possible. I think they do it because they're comparing it to a job, you know, what you can make in a job. So when I left my corporate job forever to become a full-time entrepreneur, and that was in 2019. And I have to tell you, like, everybody told me not to do it. They would say, you know, well, you know, save up more money, right? I didn't have a nest egg. They were like, save up more money. They're like, don't make a hasty decision. You got a good job. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. And so, and I had a cousin who would talk me off the ledge. Like, I'm like, today's the day. I'm driving, and today's the day. I'm going to give notice. And until one day I said to her, we're always looking at leaving a job from the perspective of what we can lose. Like, what if I can't pay my bills? What if I can't find another job quick enough? What if my business venture fails, right? And all those things are possibilities. But I said to her on this day, I said, but what if what's before us, what's in the future, what awaits me is way bigger than where I'm at right now? And what if every month I stay here, I'm losing money? What if I could be making way more, enjoying it, serving people I love, and have more security for my family than I do right now? And she was like, well, I never thought about it like that before. And that was the day, that was my last day.
That was the day you said, I quit.
Like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here, right? And so it took me, I worked with a coach. I invested everything I had to get this thing going. And it took me like within 32 days, I made $46,000.
Wow.
32 days. Right now, I had been taking on clients one at a time, like slowly, while I was working my full-time job. So I knew I had proof of concept. Like, I knew my work worked, right? But I had never done it full time. And yeah, like everybody else, I had the fear. You know, my husband looking at me with the side eye, like, you know, we need 2 incomes in this household, right? I had the fear, like, what if it fails, right? But I had to not focus on what my current situation was, but what was possible. Like, I wouldn't keep having this pull, this dream, if there wasn't something there, right? And so I just show people what's possible. And the coach that I had at the time was like, that's nothing. You'll make more than that. And I'm like, what? Well, at least I know if I could make 46,000 in 32 days, I know that, you know, and I can make more and I can replace my income. So I knew that. But she was like, you know, you're going to make more than that. And it was in November. I did a launch in November. It was just 5 days. And that was like $61,500.
Wow.
Right? So what I share with, and I'm just sharing that because that's real. Like, that's what's out there. And there are people who do way better than that. And so what I say to my clients and people who come to me who are afraid, who feel are having some of the same emotions that I have, or feeling stuck, I show them what's possible when it comes to their fees, pricing. I show them, you know, that give them options. I teach in my workshop, in my free workshop, I teach different business models, right? So you can sell jewelry, you know, and take a piece of that profit. You can sell your books, or you can leverage them in another way, or you can sell your your knowledge. You can leverage your knowledge and sell what you know and help people. All of those models work. Anybody who comes to you and says, oh, this is the only way, this is the only way you can do it, that's not true. There are
Right.
many different ways that people are just blowing things out of the water, right?
Mhm.
But what I want to do is I want to make sure that they can see what's possible, because it wasn't until other people showed me what was possible that I even said, well, how do you charge that? Like in corporate America, I work for somebody else. Yeah, you're making other people millions of dollars,
Right.
right? Millions. I was like, well, I have created like 6 million in a year. Didn't go into my pocket, right? But I've done it before, right? So what's that model look like, right? And so when I'm talking to a prospective client or someone who's feeling stuck about pricing or undercharging, I show them what's out there. I'm like, your program, you're saying you want to charge $197 for your program. And what I know, because I know my clients, is that your program is worth like 10 grand. And there are people out there that are charging 30 grand for less than what your program is.
Mhm.
They're like, really? And it's just because they don't know. They're smart. They know their stuff in their industry that they come from, but they just never did this kind of work before. They were never an entrepreneur before. They never did it for themselves before.
Mhm.
I tell them, you're not new. You're not
Mhm.
new. This understanding how to navigate the waters of entrepreneurship might be new, but you're like a beast in your past life. So don't forget what you bring. Let's,
Right.
let's package that, and then I'll show you how to do the other stuff, and let's leverage it and not sell it cheap, right?
Mhm.
Because when
Mhm.
people don't know what they have, they'll either give it away, they'll throw it away, or they'll sell it cheap.
Mhm. Now, as a brand specialist, what advice can you offer to someone to stand out amongst the crowd? Because it is kind of hard to jump out there, in these fields when you're brand new. I mean, you coming from a job, you're used to the paychecks and everything. Now you want to be an author, or you want to be whatever you want to be. You're trying to get out there, but there's a million people that's a speaker. There's a million people that's doing this. How do you stand out amongst the crowd?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a great question, and that's what really separates the iconic brands
Mm-hmm.
from people who just blend in and compete on price. Like I always tell my clients that you, unless you want to attract more clients for a longer period of time,
Right.
and you want them to buy more things from you at a premium price, then if you want that, then you need branding, right? If you don't care, if that's not important to you, then you don't really need branding, because you can just show up and be a Me Too brand and sell. And what if your competitor drops their rate, then you drop your rate, right? But if you don't want to do that, then you need to look at it differently. And what I always tell people is that don't focus on the thing, right? So don't focus all your energy on the t-shirt that you're selling. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about the t-shirt, right? It's how does a t-shirt make that person feel? How do you connect to them on an emotional level? What
Mm.
is it about the t-shirt? Because there's Coke, there's Pepsi, right? Right? If the packaging wasn't there, it could be a local store brand, right?
Right.
But the value of that packaging is very important. But it's not just what you see on the outside of the package, it's the meaning of what the brand stands for, right? So we take Nike, for example, and I sometimes will share in my workshops, I'll show an image
Mm-hmm.
of an ad. It's just this little boy, this little brown boy standing on a deck like 17 feet up above the water in these little shorts. There's no logo, there's no shoe, there's nothing. Sometimes it'll say, like, find your greatness, sometimes. And I'll ask the audience, what brand is this? There's no color palette, there's nothing. It's just an image that evokes an emotion. And there's always one or two people in the crowd that say, is it Nike? And I'll say, how did you know it was Nike? It wasn't an athlete that just a little boy. And they're like, there's something about it that inspires me. There's something about what I'm seeing that tells me it's Nike. Now, that's a really powerful brand. So what is it about you? Like, what is it about your listeners? What is it about their story, their meaning? Why did they go into business in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we start. That's where we start building from the inside out, because that's really powerful. Just think about if you have two people who do the same thing, and one just says, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, and they look great on the outside. And the other person said, I was there. I worked a job for almost 30 years that I hated, but I did the work. And then somebody fired me, right? And I said to myself, I'm never going to be in this situation again. All my life, my corporate life, I climbed the corporate ladder and I attached success to my identity, to who I was as a human being. And when that rug got snatched from underneath me, I didn't know who I was. Because when I would meet people, I would say, hi, how you doing? Of course, what's the first thing they say? What do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a hotel general manager. I work for these big brands. That was gone. And I was like, well, who am I without that? And I realized in that moment that it wasn't the job that makes you remarkable. Like, it's something that you already have with you. And I tell every woman I ever speak to is that wherever you go, whatever you do, you take your brilliance with you. So they can't take that away from you, right? And that's why you're going to get other jobs if you want a job. You're going to attract other clients when you know who you are, right? Because you take your brilliance with you.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of brand you want to build.
Yeah. Okay. And how important do you think it is for social media branding?
Oh, so now, I mean, you got to be online. Even the big brands like Johnson & Johnson is a global billions and billions of dollar brand. And now they're trying to figure out, how do I compete? You know, we need to compete more online because online now the playing field is getting leveled.
Yeah, it is.
The playing field is getting leveled, right? You have a platform, you can reach people just like the bigger media companies can reach people, right? And I always say that especially for women who are underpaid, undervalued, like now is the best time ever to build your brand online, because all you need is a laptop or a computer or a phone and an internet connection. And then you bring your brilliance, right? And you now are in a level playing field. You know, if you have the clarity you need to really put yourself out there, you can create your own niche, your own media organization.
Right.
So I think it's super important to have a presence online.
Okay. So here at Transparency Talks podcast, I mean, it's cool to talk about the accolades and all the accomplishments that we have accomplished. That's wonderful. And congratulations. But what I want to impress upon people is that, you know, it does take hard work and there are challenges that come along the way. What type of challenges did you face to get to becoming a full-time entrepreneur and getting your business up and running successfully?
I would say, because a girlfriend of mine asked me the same thing, and I think she might have been a little surprised by what I said. But the biggest challenge that I had was really having my husband believe that I could do it. I think my husband doesn't come from an entrepreneurial family. And when I first started my business, I think the first year, maybe I made $997. Right. And I got excited because I was like, a client hired me for $997. And he was like, really? All that work? You made $997? And you want to leave your job? Like, really? And then the next year, I think I made $12,000. And he was still giving me the side eye. Like, you put so much energy into this and you're bringing home peanuts from that. Right. Then the next year was like $22,000. But all I could think about was, but it's growing and there's seeds everywhere and they're growing and it's happening. And maybe I only have, one listener, right? I have one loyal listener, but then I have 2 listeners and people are looking at you like, really? You preparing all that, the whole episode for 2 listeners, right? But then they keep growing. I think the toughest part for me was to say, but can you see that there's growth? Can you see? Now he's a supporter. He's like, oh, where are you going? Where are you going to speak today? Right. But initially it was heartbreaking because that's the people that you love the most. You want them to support you and believe that it's possible that you could build something. And so I would say to keep moving forward, even if nobody even believes that you can do it. Just keep moving forward. And it might not be like your journey, might not be like my journey, right? You might leave your job way faster than I. You might not have to put in 30 years, right? Or maybe COVID hit and this is the perfect opportunity for you to write that book or to do something. But I would say find a community, find a tribe that supports you and gets it, right? Because for me, that was really heartbreaking not to have somebody who I really loved and who I knew loved me to look at me like, is it worth it?
I understand that, definitely.
Mm.
Okay. So you are also a speaker. Can you tell us about your first time speaking and your how emotionally you felt being on that stage?
That's a great, great question. I will tell you, every single time I speak, I get butterflies. Even
I do too.
coming here
Every time I
today.
sing.
Every time you sing?
Every time I sing, and I have sung in front of millions and millions of people on major stages, butterflies every time.
Every time. And so, so the very first time I spoke, I don't even know if I can remember the very first time I spoke, but I know every single time before knees knocking, teeth chattering, I get nervous, but I still do it, right? I still do it. I'm always excited afterwards. And usually after the first minute or so, I calm down. My nerves calm down. I'm okay. But I always get a little nervous.
Okay. So what type of clients do you work with?
Oh, I work with amazing, brilliant clients. Most of my clients are women. Most of them are really stepping into the next chapter of their lives. Like they've worked really hard their whole life, and they're ready to build something else. Many of them want. I've talked to probably over since the last 3 years. I've probably talked to 500 women. And of those 500 women, they all pretty much told me the same thing. And that was they either wanted to be their boss or they wanted to have more control. They really wanted to own themselves, right? They didn't want any cap on their earning potential, right? They didn't want somebody to dictate how much they can earn. They didn't want to have to fight knowing that the guy next to them was making more than them, but they were doing the work, right? And they wanted to do work that mattered to them. Like they wanted to make a significant impact in the lives of other people, whether that be their families or their community or globally. They wanted to do something that was fulfilling and made a difference. So those are my clients. It's more of a psychographic and the way the person thinks. And they're ready. When they come to me, they're ready. They're already smart and sharp and brilliant in their own right, but they never built a business online. They don't know how to start building a brand. All they really know about branding is a logo and color, right? So those are the clients who come to me. And we have a signature 1-year program where we hold their hand and walk them through the process. So they go from coming in with, leveraging what they know into a whole process that we take them through. And we do all the aesthetic things like the logos, the branding, the websites. We do press releases for them. We do all the stuff, but that's not where we start. We start on the inside.
Okay. Okay. So your company offers speaking, coaching, personal development training. You also have a 8-week brand intensive program. How does one book you?
Okay. Well, they can reach out to me. They can shoot me a DM. They can always reach me at my email address, which is Angela at Be Brilliant Movement. I know it's a long one. BeBrilliantMovement.com. They can always reach me there. I also have a free workshop that's coming up. It's a 5-day free workshop. I think it is amazing. We have several people who take it multiple times because they always learn something new. But it really helps you see branding from a different perspective. It helps you understand why people buy and how to position yourself. And it's called the Legacy Brand Workshop because we're all about building sustainable, timeless brands. And we really want them to have brands that they love, where they can attract their ideal clients, they can enroll them, and they can serve them. So it's called the Legacy Brand Workshop, and it's a 5-day and it's free. And they can join that. I'll share the link with you if you like.
Okay. Also say it out loud too, so that everybody can write it down too.
Okay. So I don't have the link memorized, but where they can go to get it is if they go to Facebook, they want to look for the group called Embrace Your Brilliance, Discover Your Freedom.
Mm,
Embrace your brilliance, discover your freedom. Because that's what we're all about.
right.
We're all about.
Now, when is this?
It starts on January the 24th. It's 5 days, and we're doing it at 8 p.m. I asked the ladies in my community when they want to have it. I'm an early bird. I don't, but they're like, nope, at night. We want you to do it at night. So it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It starts on January 24th, Monday, January 24th, and it's going to run for the whole week. So every night for an hour, we'll spend time together. They can ask me questions, and we really go deep on branding. We also talk about those business models because building a legacy has to have a financial component. So we also look at that, and they get to choose, what is going to support them in the best way.
Okay. Well, you guys heard it firsthand about Legacy Brand Workshop. It is starting on Monday, the 24th?
January
24th at 8 p.m. And we are talking to Miss Angela Durant, brand strategist, founder of Be Brilliant Movement, and chief escape artist. I want to thank you so much for being a part of Transparency Talks podcast. I learned a whole lot. And I'm excited to have all of my listeners tune in. And if they have any questions, they now know how to reach you. Now, you gave them your email address. We put your website online. And in regards to your DM, do they go to Angela Durant or do they go to Be Brilliant Movement to reach you?
Yes, they can go for the DM. They can find me at Angela Durant, or they can go straight to the group. If they go to the group, we'll let them in the group, and they can also say that they were here. They can say that they're here so we know. But if they go to Embrace Your Brilliance, Discover Your Freedom, we'll let you into the group and all the trainings. There's a training I just did last night to tee up the workshop. It's free. They can consume that right away, and then we'll get them registered. We'll make sure that they get registered for the 5-day free workshop too.
Okay. Well, again, I would like to thank you so much for being a part of Transparency Talks podcast. And with that, everyone, we are out of here.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Thank you.